Well, this is awkward. I was watching an EVS stream the other day, and Ya Boy Zack and Cecil were on it, and they were talking, and Zack was saying how the praise for Jawbreakers God King had been, I think the word he used was effusive in its praise. And I was listening to that and I thought, oh crap, I'm going to have to critique this book, aren't I? So what is Jawbreakers? It's hard to explain to someone who isn't initiated the significance of Richard C. Meyer's Jawbreakers. To my mind, the release of Jawbreakers is a watershed moment in comic book history, to the point where you could say there's before Jawbreakers and after Jawbreakers, BJB and AJB. Everything changed when Ya Boy Zack launched the Jawbreakers campaign, and it just went gangbusters. People were thinking it would make $10,000, $20,000. By the time the campaign closed, it had made something like $90,000. And then the whole thing with Mark Waid happened, and it eventually shot up to, I think it closed out about 400,000. This is unheard of in small, unknown, independent comic book creators at that time. And since then, there's been an explosion of crowdfunded comic books. And I think on Indiegogo alone, something close to, is it $2 million raised? And of course, you know, it's all part of the comicsgate phenomenon. So yeah, I really can't overstate enough the magnitude of this comic book, what it means to the industry. Now, having said that, I have some things to say. I'm going to be talking about the two books. The first one, Lost Souls, and the second one, God King, because it's all part of one big story. You know, there's little side stories included, but it's the offering, it's Jawbreakers, that's what's out there. That's what I'm going to talk about. So, the good things. The art. The art is fantastic. So this is Lost Souls, and we've got line art by John Malin, colouring by Brett R. Smith, lettering by Eric Weathers. Book 2 has art by the great Kelsey Shannon, and an amazing cover by Ethan Van Sciver, coloured by Carl Ritter. I mean, just look at that. The art is, you know, especially compared to so much of what's being put out by DC and Marvel at the moment. The art is phenomenal on all counts. So no complaints there from me. And in the second offering, God King, again, Ethan Van Sciver on the cover. Colours again by, these colours are by a company called Colour Channel. But Richard brought on a new guy called Aaron Alfici, and he's amazing. I mean, he really jumped into this, and I think, you know, epitomizes that Jawbreakers look and feel. There's other books in this one, Zashi Respawn, and that one's got line art by Charlie Snogans, who I think Zach mentioned he's like another Todd McFarlane, and I have to agree. It's really amazing line work. And the colouring on that one is by Michael G. Yeah, so I can't praise the art high enough. Another good thing about the Jawbreakers is the characters and the character design. Just, yeah, fantastic all around. I mean, these guys have the potential to be really iconic. Silkworm, Devil Dog, Hell Priest, Knife Hand, and who's the other guy? Cuffs, of course. So yeah, I mean, great names, great look. I love the idea. I think they have the potential to be a really big franchise. And, you know, and that's another thing that I really like about Jawbreakers is the premise. In the lead up to Jawbreakers being released, Zach was kind of selling it as the Expendables. I've never watched the Expendables. I don't know why. I just never caught it, but I am a big fan of the A-Team, the original TV series and the movie reboot. And that's what they actually reminded me of. It's the A-Team with superpowers. It's even got a guy in it, you know, who smokes a cigar. What's his name? I like him. He's cool. Kill Switch. What a name. Great. Yeah, so, it's to me, it's the A-team with superpowers and love it. I'm on board. That's why I backed it as well as the art, that's what sold me on it. And other than that, the printing's top notch. I think in the first one, there was an issue, Zack is a first time publisher, maybe a little teething issues here, but he remastered the book and, everything is top notch in both books. And now onto the critique. Oh, this is tough. Okay, so for me, the way the story's written, and I'm not really talking about dialogue, which isn't perfect, but it's a million times better than, the trash that we've seen on Ya Boy Zack's reviews, You know what it's like? I watched Game of Thrones like everyone else, and, I followed along and I loved it, but I didn't really understand too much of it. I didn't know all the people and all the names, so I went back and I watched the series again before the last season came out. That was time well spent. And the second time viewing the Game of Thrones, it was amazing. I knew all these people, I knew where they're from, I knew what they're all about. It was fantastic. It was great. So the first time I finished Jawbreakers, I put it down and I thought, I didn't really know what was happening. So I actually read it again. I read the whole 2 books all the way through again. And unfortunately, I still didn't really know what had happened. I guess I was just confused a lot of the time. It just seemed to me like characters and objects that were really essential to the plot seemingly just popped in and out of the story, seemingly page by page, panel by panel. I was just like, oh, what's this? I don't know, but it seems really important and they really need it. And everyone's acting like we already know what this is. And I didn't know what it is. And even after the second reading, I couldn't really figure out, like, who are these guys? What's this object? What are they doing this for? So yeah, it was, confusing on that front. The powers, they're a bit vague. Obviously, knife hand, that's crystal clear. Hell Priest is blind, but he also sees people's souls, I think. At some point he pulled out his eye. I wasn't sure why. I don't know if that was explained and I just missed it twice somehow. Silkworm shoots some things, or he's strong, but so is Cuffs, and I don't really know. It seems like that's kind of like overlapping powers, which is fine. Just, a bit fuzzy on the powers. And, I'm sure that'll be expanded on in later books, but I just feel like that's something that after quite a few pages, I mean, we're a bit into it now. I might know a little bit more about what that's all about. Another thing I noticed was Zack likes to have the characters describe what they're doing while they're doing it a bit. And I think that's a bit unnecessary. We're doing this, let's do that. We need to get this done while they're doing it. Yeah, I just felt that was just slowed the story down a bit, or felt a bit unnecessary or a bit forced. But yeah, in general, I think it's the frenetic pace of the whole thing from start to finish. It's all pretty happening really quickly and everything, and you're jumping here and there. And Zack, I guess, he's spent the last 2 years reading comic books of superheroes sitting in diners, chatting about food and YouTube channels and, all sorts of mundane things. So he's coming out at like action comic, action. And, he may have taken it a bit too far here. Sometimes you need a bit of a breather, I think, and just kind of get to know the characters a bit more. What's my takeaway from the whole thing? I think maybe for a first comic, the storyline with God King, it might have been a bit too ambitious, or at least too ambitious to squeeze into essentially what I think was 3 books overall, a 3-book arc over 2 printed books. I really love the premise of they're like the A-team. People hire them, they go out, you know, they got superpowers, things happen. Because they've got superpowers, they can handle, you know, some weirder things like a giant gorilla. I love that giant gorilla. You know, they do the job, twists and turns, enemies, friends turn out to be enemies, enemies turn into friends. That can all work. I think with the God King, it was a bit just too weird for me, and I didn't really follow what was going on with the parents and the aliens. And the aliens seemed to just come in at the last minute. Did I miss that at the start? I thought the aliens just kind of popped in. Those weird creatures in a different dimension, they just kind of popped in at the very end. And as well, you know, we only kind of found out what God King was up to as he was being thwarted. Yeah, so it was just, maybe I just didn't understand everything that was happening there. If I was Zack, I would have kept God King, because I think that's a cool character. I think it's a cool concept. Again, a lot of things with Jawbreakers for me is, I love the concept, I love the premise, I love the look, I love the characters. It was just the execution of the story. If Zack had have kept God King as sort of an ongoing arch nemesis in the background, kind of think Moriarty or Kaiser Soze, you know, he's in the background and he's pulling the strings. They're doing certain jobs, and oh, wouldn't you know it, it was God King all along pulling the strings, and oh, we nearly got him, but he just slipped away again. I think that would have been a better dynamic. They would have had an ongoing arch enemy, and each story would have had that subtext going alongside, you know. So last time they were chasing a giant gorilla. This time it's some other threat that only superpowered people can handle, but all along underneath it was the God King and his nefarious plans. So yeah, you know, would I recommend Jawbreakers? Absolutely. It's a phenomenon, you know, it's an event. It's a cultural event in comic books. So even though I've got some harsh critiques, I'm still a fan of Jawbreakers. I'm a huge fan of Ya Boy Zack. I'm all on board. I just thought it's my duty to Zack to give him my opinions, take it or leave it, call me an idiot. Everyone can leave a comment and tell me where I went wrong and, you know, what I missed and what I got right, hopefully. But yeah, that's it. That's my first ever video review. I hope you liked it. I hope you got something out of it. I hope it didn't turn you off purchasing any future Jawbreakers. You know, this is all a learning process for all of us. Ya Boy Zack is a new writer, and what he's done is just, I mean, he's phenomenal. He's set in motion a chain of events that could potentially alter the course of comic books forever. So yeah, that's not something everyone does. Yeah. All right. Until next time, cheers, and see you later.